WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. It's Tuesday, each and every Tuesday at 2:30. We come to you on Star Communications, Channel 16, WCLN Radio. A summation in the Sampson Weekly newspaper. Certainly appreciate those emails coming to us to We Should Know, edu@gmail.com. We Should Know, edu@gmail.com. Your suggestions, your comments are deeply appreciated. Also, if you'd like to just drop us a card, it's Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. As We Should Know, Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. Interesting subject today, something that a lot of folks may know a little bit about, some may not know a whole lot about, but something that I think you'll be interested in, and it deals with the military. And when I say the military, it's my pleasure to introduce Ann Knowles. Ann Knowles, I think everybody, probably just your name, I could just say Ann Knowles and they would know that you're the veterans officer here in the county. Served on the national level, been not only an advocate, but an aggressive advocate for veterans' rights. We appreciate you taking your time to be here today. We've got a special, probably cause somebody a little surprised at some of the things you've been up to. The other person we have with us is first class sergeant, and you're with the United States Army.
Yes, sir.
You're with the Golden Knights.
I am.
And over 9,000 jumps from a perfectly good airplane. Adrian Hill, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
I want to kind of give folks a little bit of your background. You've had a tour of duty in Iraq, 2 tours in Kosovo. You've been awarded the Bronze Star, the Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal, North Atlantic Treaty Organization Medal, and you've also earned the Master Parachute Badge, Expert Infantry Combat Action, Pathfinder, and Drill Sergeant badges, to name a few, and there's probably some I've left out.
I'm not sure.
I want to kind of start, Ann, with you today, because when we think about the Golden Knights, I think everybody kind of knows a bit about them, because if you've been to a fair, you've been to any major event, and the Golden Knights drop out of that airplane, and everybody is at awe with that.
Yes.
A lot of us, however, don't know how it feels, but ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to tell you that Ann Knowles has done that, tethered to a Golden Knight. Tell us what you felt when you looked out of that plane and realized what you had agreed to do.
When I looked out, I thought about my veterans that have come in and told me, and it was everything that they said was there. The awe of looking out and you see the clouds below you. It was awesome. It was a humbling experience because I was following in footsteps that had gone before me. It was awesome.
What inspired you to make this step and do that at the I'm just going to say at the point you are in your life now, because you've got 44 years as a veterans officer, so you're moving like I am down that pathway. What all of a sudden caused you to think, I want to do this? Well,
it wasn't all of a sudden. About 10 years ago, a veteran service officer, John Steele, was a Golden Knight. He and I were good friends. I took him to Washington with me, along with several others, and he would tell me all about what they did. I have seen them many times at veterans events jump on the X, and I was just so inspired by them that they're so trained and they have it so perfect that they control the wind to get there. And John was going to set it up for us, but you tried to get 10 people to get on the same date. So recently, in the past few years, I met some Golden Knights that the VA had not done their claims well. And they came to me, and I helped them and told them how much I appreciate them and what an honor it is for me to be their service officer. And I got the surprise.
Outstanding. Adrian, I'm going to flip to you right now, and I want to kind of get an idea. We're talking about a group of folks that has a deep history. 1959, from what I understand, the first formulation of that process. From your perspective, in doing this for 24 plus years, and being part of this organization 24 plus years. What does it say to you as being part of that, and what does it say to the United States Army of having these teams, not just one team, but these teams out there all across the country and world doing this kind of thing?
A whole lot of questions there. Let's start with the Army's part. We were organized in 1959 to combat the Russians' rule in the skies. So we started competing. We won some gold. We're not the Silver Knights, and we became the Gold Knights with our official nickname. We do have a lot of different teams. We have a demonstration section, and they're the ones you see at the air shows, at the high school football games, the rodeos, the college and professional level sporting events. We have the tandem section, which Miss Ann was able to come along with and share the experience. But the Golden Knights' job is to connect America's Army with America's public, because we're not just the Army. The way I like to think of it is we are your Army. We're not just on the installation, break glass in case of conflict. We live in your neighborhoods. I may go to work on the installation. My wife may work at the dental office and process your paperwork. She may be your technician. She may cut your hair. My daughter may be your daughter's friend at school. My coworker in the Army may coach the Little League team that your son's on. So we're an integral part of your community, and the Golden Knights is given the opportunity to travel the country and even the world to places where, not like the greater Fort Bragg area, where the military is very well known, but somewhere in the country where there isn't a military installation, I may be the only soldier a person ever meets. So the things I say and do are the only contact that person will ever have with the United States Army. So it's my honor to be a Golden Knight, to be an ambassador. I'm humbled. I should have to pay the Army to do this job, honestly. They let me stay around well past the retirement years of service, but I love what I do. I wasn't always a Golden Knight. I did do some standard operations in the Army for about 15 years. You mentioned I was a drill sergeant. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was over in Italy in the 173rd as well. So for the past 10 years, I've been with the team. And again, just such a humbling experience to go out and represent the Army on a national and even international level to America's public and connect.
You just mentioned probably 24 or 14 years prior to going with the Golden Knights, you did other things in the military. What was that thing that kind of intrigued you about what, quote, the Golden Knights did and what their job function was? What pulled you in that direction?
I think, I can't think of the right word, but the level of impact. As a soldier at Fort Bragg, I can impact a small sphere. But as a soldier with the Golden Knights, I can travel. I've been to Hawaii and Alaska from the team. I've been to foreign countries. And as good as the Army has been to me and my family, my dad served, my grandfather served, my son just enlisted. He'll be shipping off to basic training in about 3 weeks. I'm so proud of him. To be able to just, I guess, make Sergeant Hill's footprint a little bit bigger, because we don't realize the impact that we make on a daily basis. You drop a pebble into a pond, at some point the second and third order effects, the ripples, they reach the shoreline. And hopefully my positive representation of the United States Army ripples all the way to the next generation of soldiers or the next generation of small business owners that want to hire some veterans, working with Miss Ann, maybe just give a military discount. Not everybody's called to serve, but those that can, if they support us, and again, maybe they take an initiative to hire 10 veterans this year.
Last February, 2018, associate of yours by the name of Sergeant Richard Young had an unfortunate accident that occurred. When you guys look at that, does that kind of create waves of concern throughout the entire organization? And how do you respond to an accident, since you're obviously people that put things together on a very precision scale?
As far as a knee-jerk reaction to an accident, we're prepared for accidents like that. We're aware that what we do, we're not risk averse. We just try to mitigate it as much as we possibly can. We are all aware that every time we leave an aircraft, things can go wrong. I've had small parachute malfunctions, but I trust my equipment inherently. The reserve is packed by an FAA certified parachute maintenance technician perfectly. There's no other word that I could use, not near perfectly, not almost perfectly, but perfectly. And things do happen. Most of us have been injured a time or two. Sergeant Young was injured very, very severely. I'm not sure who saw the interview on Sunday morning, but the appropriate emergency response was in place long before that accident happened. And I think you might have saw at the end of the interview, what did Dick say he wanted to do? He's ready to go jump again, because he realizes it is part of what we do. But there's also a real world skill set with what I do. Miss Ann can come with me. I'm actually assigned to the tandem section, so I take people almost every day on tandems or do their videos. And while you're just going for the fun of it and the experience and see what some of your veterans have been through, if there's a soldier injured on a mountainside in Afghanistan somewhere and he needs a vascular surgeon and he needs some type-specific blood, myself and another tandem instructor strapped to a bundle full of that type-specific blood or full of those instruments that are needed for that surgery, and the vascular surgeon with me 20,000 feet up, 10, 15 miles away to get in there and save that soldier. There are soldiers that jump supplies. They jump their dogs, their bomb dogs, their drug dogs in with them. There is a real world skill set to what the Golden Knights do. So that's kind of what got me into the Golden Knights and wanting to follow that. Sergeant Young is recovering very, very well. He's still in our thoughts and prayers every day, and I hope he can come back and jump with us really, really soon.
Well, it says a lot that the continuation of what you do continues to go forward. It doesn't agitate anything. It doesn't create such a ripple that folks start pulling back. You continue to do and seek that level of expertise. Is that kind of the underlying thought process? And what I want to do is kind of paint a picture for folks, because we're fixing to go to break.
Yes, sir.
When we come back from break, I want to kind of move more to you and then to Ann to get this feeling, because I'm sure folks listening to this show, there are probably folks out there that says, I want to try this too. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a moment.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We're talking with the Golden Knights and Ann Knowles, a veterans officer. We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. Call a friend.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We Should Know's on there. If you just happen to be driving down the road and you happen to tune us in on the radio, it's Tuesday, 2:30, every Tuesday. We come to you on WCLN Radio. Hopefully, if you're watching us, you're at home and not in the car. We're hoping that you're doing that, channel 16. Also, just for your information, there's an upload of this to YouTube about a week or two after the show airs. So you can pick us up there worldwide, anywhere you happen to be. You want to see something that's a little bit different than the normal medias that you look at, then go to We Should Know. We'll bring you some highlights of information and maybe tantalize your appetite to do something a bit different. Today is one of those days. We've got the Golden Knights with us. And I say that plural because Ann Knowles is almost a Golden Knight herself. She's jumped out of a perfectly good airplane with you guys, and I've got her on because of her unbelievable depth of energy and desire to assist. And I'm going to stretch that. Not only veterans, but anybody wearing a uniform, she's right there. If you need a cup of water, if you need a meal or what have you, call Ann Knowles. She'll take care of it.
That's what it's all about.
We thank you for what you do, Ann. Sergeant Hill, I want to get back to you and talk a bit more about the Golden Knights. One of the things I was somewhat impressed with, and I encourage people to pull it up and take a look at it, but you guys have a creed. And I was interested in the way that unrolled kind of in my mind as we were talking. And one of those parts of that creed I want to just mention here, and you can probably recite it from memory. It says, "The goal I pursue is simple, yet bears a responsibility I must discharge without reservation. When I have gained the respect, admiration, and gratitude of the American public and my teammates, then I will have fulfilled my mission as a Golden Knight." What did I miss in that?
What did you miss?
What did I miss in that comment? What would you add to that?
Honestly, that last stanza, when we make the team and we get knighted, that's what we recite. when I have gained the respect, admiration, and gratitude of the American public and my teammates, then I have fulfilled my mission as a Golden Knight. Because first and foremost, I have to be dedicated to my teammates. I risk my life with them every day when I jump out of a plane. The guys who pack my chute, my reserve, I may pack for them. They may be involved in an interview. They may be involved in a high school visit, a children's hospital visit. And some of us may be assigned to maintain the equipment. Some of us may be assigned to do the visit or the interview. So inherently, the respect and admiration of my teammates, and then the American public, because the Army only has one parachute team, the Department of Defense sponsored team. There are actually 3 Department of Defense sponsored exhibition teams: the Navy Blue Angels, the Air Force Thunderbirds, and the Army Golden Knights. So I'm in pretty elite company, and I'm charged with a mission that I cannot fail at. I have to exemplify the U.S. Army, the standards, the attention to detail, the military bearing, the integrity. That's personally my watchword is integrity. It's beyond anything else. So to demonstrate that to the American public, whoever I meet, and they may not be Army supporters. They may want to talk to me about policy. They may want to talk to me about current events in the news. They may want to talk to me about wars, and they may not be a supporter. But I respect any and all opinions, and I'm more than happy to listen to all of them. Somewhat hungry to listen to them because it does give me a different perspective, each and every person that I do meet. And I've spent my life defending their right to believe and feel however they want to. So I feel my entire life's work as an adult is adjudicated by the fact that, please share your opinion with me. If it's not my opinion, that's perfectly okay. This is America.
We see a lot of conversation now, and we've got something that I've kind of grown to, I was not familiar with when I was your age and younger, is something called social media. How has social media impacted what you do as a Golden Knight for the Army, and how does it impact, in your opinion, the future demonstration of bringing folks to understand the discipline that's required to do what you do?
Number one is anybody can make anything they want live. It used to be if you weren't CBS, NBC, or ABC, it didn't get to be shown live. It may be recorded, but everybody can pull up Facebook Live, and whoever's following them can see whatever we're doing, which it ups the stakes a little bit. I think there's less room for margin because it's not on tape, it's live. Also, I believe it enables a much, much greater footprint, because something that the Golden Knights may do at a high school football game on Friday night, instead of the 2,000, 5,000 people in the stands, the collective posts that may be associated with that particular game could reach hundreds of thousands of people across the country, friends of friends of friends of friends. So I love it. I think it's a giant step forward for the Army. We have a very dedicated social media team. I think they do a great job. They printed up they put all that cool stuff about me up, and you can meet me on the road somewhere, and I can just interact with you for 20 seconds or a minute. And you want to know a little bit more about me, you jump right on the team's social media. You can pull that up, learn all you want to know. You may learn that you passed through the town that I'm from some time ago on vacation, or I think it brings us all a whole lot closer.
When you were growing up, obviously you were the same person, but you had different environmental impacts. When you were a teenager, you were younger than that. When you go back home as a Golden Knight now, does folks in your hometown recognize what you have been through to be where you are now? Do they get that?
Wow. They recognize that I'm a Golden Knight. They recognize that I'm a non-commissioned officer in the U.S. Army. And they recognize that there is a sacrifice that comes with being a soldier. We're away from home. We miss birthdays. We miss Christmases. Sometimes we miss children's births. We miss time with our parents. And without my family and my support system back home in Alabama and my group of friends in the local area, I could not do what I do. I think it's a lot harder to be an Army spouse or an Army dependent child. I did that myself. My dad was in the Army from 1974 until 1991. And then I went to high school and joined myself in 1996. So I know a little bit about being independent, and my dad being gone, I think they have a much harder job than we do. We go and do our job, and they don't miss a beat. The kids still go to karate or Wednesday night course at church or whatever they happen to be involved in. And we come back home, and we're the party being integrated at that time. We may have been gone for 8 months to a year on a deployment, and the wives, the kids, they hold down the fort on the home front. The communities lift us up. They welcome us home with banners, parades, showings of movies, just all sorts of things to honor our service and our time away. The Army has great infrastructure in place for those of us returning that may need to talk to someone, those of us transitioning out of military life into civilian life with our assistance officers. I almost forgot the original question because you allowed me to expound so much upon how I feel about things.
Absolutely. Well, and the reason I ask that question because oftentimes folks remember people in the role they were as a young person. And when I say a young person, I'm talking teenager, high school, what happened during that life cycle. Now all of a sudden here's this person bigger than life on the national stage talking about jumping out of airplanes and the elite team that they're a member of, and they go, could that actually be that person? The question was, would you be that same person back then as you are now? Did something happen to change you and point you in that direction? And I get a lot of questions about that because many times people look at me and go, well, you do realize that people are broken in different ways. I said, yeah, I understand that. You do realize they need correction in certain ways. I said, I understand that. So I'm always looking for, is there a magic formula that you could recommend to people that if they're maybe in a place they don't need to be now, that they can be in a place that Sergeant Adrian Hill is?
There were times as a young kid where I acted up a little bit more than I should have. There were times in high school where I acted up a little bit more than I should have. And I made really strong Southern upbringing, military upbringing as well. My dad was in the Army, like I said. But it may have taken me a lot longer to get my ducks in a row, for lack of a better term. By the time I was 19, I was ready to deploy in defense of this nation from the 82nd Airborne Division right down the road at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So the Army was the best decision I ever made. When I graduated high school, it was not my first priority. I wanted to play football and firefight. But I made the decision to go ahead and serve my nation, and I never regretted it for a single second. I love everything I do. I do think at home, I think they're very proud of me. I'm happy that they are. But I still think they see me as just little old Adrian, little redheaded freckle-faced boy from, I looked a lot like Opie from Mayberry back when I was little. So they just see me as Adrian. But hopefully I'm setting the example for my children, for my cousins, for friends of friends who may want to search out a career in the military. And maybe the Army's not for them. Maybe they're more geared towards Air Force or Marine Corps or Navy. It's one team, one fight. I love the Army. We have 212 occupational specialties, opportunities for repayment of college debt, scholarship opportunities. And there are actually jobs now that delve into the social media. Mm-hmm. The young men and women who that's just what they love and that's what they want to do with their lives. We have jobs like that. We have jobs to fly drones now. At first it was just a kid's toy, and then it got into being public video and social media worthy, and now the Army's adopted it as well. Mm-hmm. So there's probably a job for everybody out there, and they have the same exact opportunities that I was given, and I would encourage anybody to go talk with a recruiter, just see what your options might be.
We're going to take another break, but when we come back I want to follow up on the comment you made regards to drones, because we do have a lot of new technology out there. Jumping out of a plane with a parachute, of course, dates back to the 50s, so we're going to see how they play off of each other and get your input on how that technology is expanding.
Yes, sir.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Again, we're talking with Ann Knowles, the Veterans Officer here in Sampson County. Jumped out of a perfectly good airplane, and we're talking with the Golden Knights, somebody that helped her do that. We'll be back in a moment.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping home secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody try to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I want to thank you for being with us. Again, we're talking with Sergeant Adrian Hill. He's with the Golden Knights, a very elite team with the United States Army. Jumps out of airplanes, does all kinds of stuff. Many people that's listening to this show, watching the show today, has seen these folks in various kinds of venues throughout the country. And Knowles recently jumped tandem out of an airplane with the Golden Knights. She's sitting at the table not only because she is an avid supporter of the military and veterans, but she's taken on that, I guess, is that a bucket list thing, Ann, jumping out of that airplane?
No, that was just to give honor to my veterans and my servicemen.
Well, you did a great job with that, and by doing that, you segued this guy on We Should Know and yourself, and we're going to give him some stage time here. But as we went to break, you talked a bit about drones and their current impact in the military and various aspects. We've seen that as civilians in the news media with bombings in the Middle East and various other things. We've done some research 3 or 4 years ago. We brought some technical folks in from North Carolina State that actually did a lot of work and is still doing a lot of technology work with drones. One of the things we discovered, which was kind of interesting, a lot of folks said, this is new technology. Been around since the 60s. Drones, the military has been using these things worldwide for a long time. How does that impact, and how important is it to balance the basic human things that you guys do? And you mentioned a few of those a while ago, like bringing surgeons into combat zones and that kind of thing. Does that enhance what you do, or does sometimes it get in the way, or both?
The drones?
Yes.
Oh, I was a big fan in 2006, 2007, my last deployment to Iraq. It would give me visibility from 2,000, 3,000 feet above the battlefield to be able to see snipers, to be able to see people that are trying to do bad things to U.S. soldiers and then leave the AO. With a picture that broad from that high up, I have visibility to those things that I just couldn't see hunker down behind a Humvee. Mm-hmm. So, and they carry very, very
sophisticated.
That's a good word for it. I mean, I can look at the screen of the computer,
yeah,
and I can see if someone has a weapon. So
from that far up,
there's a lot of detail. So, that tells me friend or foe right there, and they can tell me things that I don't see. There's actually They're not exactly operated from the ground that they're covering. They could be operated from 5, 10, 5,000 miles away. And someone watching that screen that I may be preoccupied with something else on the battlefield may be able to see something and talk to me in a little earpiece or talk to me on some sort of media and let me know what's going on. So I think it's a combat multiplier in every way, shape, form, and fashion. I'm not a huge techie, if that's a term nowadays. But some of this new stuff coming out, the Army's, I'm not an expert on any of it, so please don't ask me the technical questions. But when I see it, the R&D that the Army's putting into it, the Department of Defense for all the services, I couldn't ask for better. I mean, I really believe it saves lives.
What do you think inhibits folks oftentimes from turning and deciding, well, I just am not sure I want to go in the military? And I'll kind of pose that observation from the point that, quite frankly, a lot of folks have seen what you've done in your career, which is be a drill sergeant. They've sort of seen the military as the drill sergeant environment and not maybe so much as the team environment of which the Golden Knights are. How do we get them to see the part that you're playing with the Golden Knights?
Well, let me segue the last social media question into we are #Army Team. This is the biggest team on the planet as far as I'm concerned, and I think the stakes are a lot higher than a high school football game. I was an avid high school football player. I lived for Friday nights. I trained year-round for those 10, 11, 12, hopefully more weeks. But the brotherhood that I've made in the Army, brother and sisterhood, there's no doubt in my mind will be lifelong. I stay in touch with people, and sometimes I may not see him for 4 or 5 years. My actual drill partner I didn't see for about 3 years after he retired, and I just happened to be in town doing a show where he was. I said, hey brother, I'm in town, and we went right out to dinner and picked up like we had never even lost touch of each other for a couple of years. The camaraderie, I think it stems from the inherent requirement to depend on one another. I'm an infantry soldier by trade. I can't be an infantry soldier without an ordnance officer, making sure we have the supplies that we need, without food service personnel, making sure that I eat, without petroleum supply specialists, making sure vehicles have fuel in them. I can't even get to the battlefield without an airplane. So I need the Air Force and I need the Army's air assets. None of us can do this alone. None of us could even close to do this alone.
We've heard this a lot from the national level, that we have the most powerful and capable military of any country in the world. We've heard it on the national level. From the perch that you sit on the limb that you sit on in doing your job, do you agree with that, and would you like to add to it?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. However, I'd like to think that hopefully we use that as a deterrent more than an offensive weapon. I'd like to know that we can handle things diplomatically with the people that you and I and Miss Ann elect through the democratic system. But that's just a small asterisk, without a doubt.
But I think the important thing is to just knowing that gives many people the opportunity to sleep with comfort, as being concerned that it's not there. So when I get asked a question, do we spend too much money on military assets? And of course I say, have you got any left? Because everybody, Maslow's hierarchy of need, you got to feel safe, you got to feel comfortable, and that's one of the first assets. I want to kind of segue again here. I'm try to get everything in. I want to, as part of your title, you've got instructor/videographer. And when I look at videography, I just think about a camera, a movie camera, that kind of thing. I really don't think a whole lot about what Ann did and somebody that's jumped beside of her actually doing video work. How hard is that to do?
It's just as hard as the tandem itself. And you're not in the shot. As a tandem instructor, I'm right there with Ann the entire time when there's a rapport. Well, the entire time, again, teamwork.
Yeah.
That videographer and I as a tandem instructor, or I as a videographer and another Golden Knight as a tandem instructor, we're a team from the moment we pick up the passenger list and we see Ann. I'll meet her to take her on a jump. The videographer will capture all that. And she's going to leave at the end of the day with, I'm not sure, did you get a USB?
Yes, I did.
So it's been pretty recently. Yes. A USB drive with hundreds of photos and a video already edited, start to finish, from the time you met the instructor until he got you safely back down on the ground.
That's absolutely right.
And we really want to thank you for putting your faith and trust in the soldier.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we feel like we want the American public to do. This is just a small way that we can show, put your faith, even put your life in the hands of a soldier, because at the end of the day, America's military is the last line of defense against aggressors around the world. So, thank you so much. And the video is just as difficult. Sometimes people want to look at the ground. It's just so beautiful.
It is.
And so I have cameras strapped to my helmet. I turn the video camera on before I leave the plane. But the still camera is actually on a bite switch, just like you would have at, back in my day, it was Olin Mills. Right. And she would have the little remote. Well, the same thing is on a bite switch that goes in between my teeth, and I push the button with my tongue when I want to snap a shot. And I have a ring sight on my helmet, and you remember seeing all this, that's actually sighted into the still camera just like a rifle sight. So I may have to get, instead of being in front of Miss Ann in free fall with her tandem instructor, Adrian the videographer, instead of being in front of her where she's smiling at me, I may have to actually get onto my back and fly up underneath her. Did your guy fly on his back or give you a foot or a hand or anything to dock on?
No. I was smiling the whole time.
Just doing what they told you, arch and smile.
Absolutely.
And each experience for each person is different. Each jump is different. Everyone that I video or everyone that I take on a tandem, different experience for them. So sometimes I may reach out and give someone a hand.
That's right.
and some people may not want to grab it. They just may sit there and wave at me. So everyone's experience is different. But overall, it's difficult, but we're given the assets to do it. We're given the training. When we do have an instant where we don't do as, we're human, we're fallible, where we don't do as well as we want to do, we take a step back. The United States Army Parachute Team goes on to safety stand-downs more than any other unit in the Army, not because we have incidents, but so that we don't have incidents. So at least quarterly we stand down. You mentioned earlier, Sergeant Young, we stood down very, very briefly. We looked at the cause, the effect, how to mitigate it even further, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know until it manifests itself. So we had an accident, it manifested itself. We made some improvements, and we're still going strong.
And that kind of philosophy leads you to continue to improve and evolve over time. So when we look back at the number of years just you've been doing this, say 10 years or so, there's been a lot of evolution in the way you approach things, I suspect, in those 10 years.
Yes, sir. The equipment has made leaps and bounds. We're actually governed by an association called the United States Parachute Association, and they fall under the FAA. They lobby for us to keep general aviation airports accessible to skydivers. We're exhibition parachutists, but at the beginning of our career, we did this to see if it was going to be fun, and it was, and we got hooked on it, and it became the opportunity to be a job. So my first jump 24 years ago was out of a C-141 Starlifter. They don't even fly for the Air Force anymore. And then the C-17 came along, and I went out to Yuma and did some test jumps on those, and now it's our primary platform for inserting airborne units into drop zones around the world, country, for training, whatever need be. The parachute was called a T-10 Bravo. The reserve pilot chute was on a tiny little spring, and now it has a 30-inch coil spring that shoots it out in front of us and guaranteed to deploy.
Unbelievable. We're going to take another break, and we're going to come back and talk about some of the kind of final points we want to address up here at the end, and Ann will give you a few moments for commentary as well. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking with the Golden Knight, Sergeant Adrian Hill, and Ann Knowles, the Veterans Officer right here in Sampson County, both of which have jumped out of airplanes.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I want to thank you for being with us today. It's kind of a special day. It's not often we get the Golden Knights to sit down with us, and Ann Knowles with that Golden Knight, Sergeant Hill, and Ann Knowles, their Veterans Officer. I want to start this last segment, guys, if I can, back to that creed of the Golden Knights, and I want to read a segment for that. For those people that are maybe looking at this show, they've got grandchildren, children, or they may be a high school student, and they're hearing this, and this kind of struck me as something that should be heard. And part of that creed, and again, this is part of it, you can go online and pull this up, but it says, "Always will I keep myself mentally alert, substance-free, physically fit, and morally straight. I respect the image of the United States Army. I cannot lose the confidence entrusted in me as a Golden Knight, and I will not tolerate those who do." I don't know. When I read, that's a pretty powerful statement, and I hope folks think about the words on that. I hope they go to their computer and look it up. That's a high expectation, Sergeant Hill. How hard is it to hit that mark each and every day?
If you break it down, it's just a requirement to be in the Army. We require physical fitness, moral courage, substance-free lifestyle. Everyone in the Army is doing the same thing. We just polished it up and, made it into a creed. But every soldier out there is serving the exact same values.
So the response is we're hoping folks are listening today. If they're hearing this, you too can do this.
Definitely, 100%. Those who choose to go to college can come in as an Army officer with a bachelor's degree. Those that don't have the particular assets to be able to obtain a bachelor's degree. The Army has, I have a great friend. He was on tryouts with me quite a few years ago, and he finished his degree. He already had a wife and young children, and the Army paid for, I believe, at least over 75% of his degree, books, and he finished his bachelor's degree, and he's now an officer.
Wow. And when you hear those kinds of things, and I know you've trumpeted this information a lot from your podium, but when you hear those kinds of things, you know, we're sitting here talking to somebody that has seen the result of that and has lived that. How does that, and what would be your commentary to folks? You know, is it time for them to think about jumping out of that plane too?
Everybody should try it. But in reality of what we're just talking about, our world today is college bound to a degree, but I see more and more young people that's not interested. I hope what they see today is that the Army is not their granddaddy's Army. It is an education in itself. They can serve their country, get their education, hopefully make a career out of it. I think a career in the military is one of the most awesome things, but if they choose not to, they're prepared to come back into the world, to come back into a job that going to college for 4 years may not have prepared them for it.
The future, Adrian, I think as we look at the military service piece of possibility for folks, is not only discipline, but it's initially making that decision. You know, I'm going to do this, and then it kind of unfolds. As you mentioned a while ago, I'm sure it seems very quickly. You know, you've got 24 years in there, and you're thinking, what just happened?
Yes, sir. I honestly believe that the first step after visiting the recruiter was making the decision. I was very diligent about finding out what my options were here and there, and this seemed like it was what was best for me and my family. But at the end of the day, it's still joining the Army. And you've got to sit down and you've got to have what I call a gut check moment, and you've got to be okay with knowing that at this point in time, it's no longer about Adrian, but it's about the United States Army, and it's about this great nation. And you make a commitment to something higher than yourself by serving in the military. It was difficult for me. I won't lie and say I was just a brave 19-year-old young man, and I had all my ducks in a row. I thought long and hard, and I was scared to an extent. Where am I going to end up? We grew up watching movies about Vietnam, movies about World War II. Desert Storm happened not too long. I was already in my high school career, but I wasn't old enough to join yet. And at the time, when I wasn't old enough to join, I wanted to go.
Yeah.
But it gets a whole lot more real when you're 18 years old, and you sign on the line, you put your hand up, and you take the oath of enlistment. It gets a whole lot more real. And I would just encourage any young man or any young lady who is thinking about it. Again, it doesn't have to be a career for everyone, like you mentioned. It's definitely turned into a career for me. Was it a career when I started? No, ma'am. I had other things I still wanted to do, but it was fun. I was living a pretty decent lifestyle with the income that I get. I was traveling. My health insurance was taken care of, which is something you don't think about at 19 years old. But when you start having children, or you get to be 30 years old, and
it becomes critical.
It does become critical. And all those things have been provided to me, and they were just stepping stones. The first enlistment was for 3 years, and then a second enlistment a first re-enlistment was an option, and there were some perks that came with that. I got a little bit of a signing bonus. I got a trip to Italy for my next tour. Not bad. And then on my second re-enlistment was September 18th of 2001, because the country came under attack on September 11th, and my window was open, and I was actually thinking about, I was 51% getting out. I was going to go back to the States and pick up my firefighting career. But again, I had already made that commitment 6 years earlier to serve something higher than myself. And at this point in time, the United States came together, and we were just one country, and I couldn't get my hand back in the air fast enough to re-enlist. And I re-enlisted on September 18th, 2001, And
didn't the Army see a lot of enlistments and folks getting in the Army as a result of that?
Oh, definitely. Even as late as 2008, when I became a drill sergeant, there were young men and women who had seen that happen as middle schoolers and had just waited until they turned 18. And there were split options, which the Army has an option where you can go to basic. They had at the time. I can't speak to that now, but you could go as a junior or a pre-senior. You could go to basic training at 17 years old between your junior and senior year, and then after your senior year, after you graduated high school, I apologize, you could finish up your advanced individual training and then be sent to your unit active duty. So I saw an influx, and not just 18-year-olds. I saw 40-year-old professionals who'd been doing their job for 40 years and had time invested in that, and it had just weighed on them, and they had fought it, and finally they got to the point where they were like, this is what I need to do. I guess maybe they looked at the state of the country, they looked at bad things happening around the world, they looked at their children and their wife, and they
wanted to make a difference.
They made that decision, definitely.
Is that something that's kind of inside a person that is there, and if something's got to bring it out, or?
It's not something the Army can instill in someone. It's not something I can take as a drill sergeant in 14 weeks. I can't. I can teach you Army values. I can teach you doctrine, what's right, what's wrong, but I can't teach you integrity. I think that comes from inside all of us. Personal courage. I can't teach you courage. I can just teach you what to do with your courage when the time comes, whether it's step out of an airplane or it happens to be something over in one of the conflicts that I've been involved with. And NCOs long before me, who trained me up, they taught me what to do with my courage. I was brave enough to get on the airplane. Now what was I going to do with that skill? And they taught me exactly what to do. And next thing I knew, I was hanging up underneath the parachute 1,000 feet above Fort Benning, Georgia. I wish I could have seen myself back then. Just my very first jump, I think it was August 9th of 1996. I wish I could have been floating on a cloud and been able to look at that young man.
There was not a videographer out there,
There was not.
No, was not. So what does a person do if they want to follow in the footsteps of Ann Knowles and step out of a perfectly good airplane tethered to a Golden Knight?
Well,
is that available to anybody?
It's not available to everyone. There are only so many slots per year, and we like to reserve them. You have to be nominated. So there's a nomination form that you can fill out, and someone within the organization or the recruiting command or the Army itself, even sometimes other services, can nominate you to jump with the Golden Knights. And we jump, what's your official title, Ms. Ann? You're you're a
Veteran Service Officer.
VSO. So we all at the 20-year mark, we hear VSO. We don't know one, but it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
Remind me of the question again real quick.
What did they do? What does a person do to be able to do that? Is there a procedure?
So to begin that nomination, you would end up needing to call the headquarters building and speak with a tandem coordinator. Her name is Sergeant First Class Laura Davis. And she will give you all the avenues, email you the packet, things of that nature. School teachers, law enforcement, veteran service officers, representatives, anyone we think can influence young men and women to just open their perspective up to see the Army for what it really is, and people who can help us reach our goal, which I stated at the beginning of this interview, connecting America's Army with America's public. That's the job of the Golden Knights.
And TV crew people would be in that as well. I'm just going to. We'll have to work around it.
I see what you're doing there.
We'll have to
Yes,
work
sir.
around it. So I think what I want to do is we kind of come to close here is kind of give you an opportunity for any closing comments. You got about 20 seconds or so to do that.
Actually, this little town of Clinton, I've never been up here before, but I stopped off over there by the Lowe's to have some lunch. I got up here early. I wanted to make sure I didn't run into any traffic.
Over at Ribeyes.
Actually, I stopped at the Japanese buffet, right there by the car wash. And I had my meal, and I got up to go to the restroom. When I came back, my check was missing, and the gentleman behind me turned around. He said, "I stole it." And he shook my hand, and he said, "Thank you very much for your service." I said, "It's my honor." He picked up my check. I'd like to thank that gentleman for picking up my lunch and his support of the Army. You guys are great. Thank y'all for having me.
You'll get a lot of that around here. We've been trained by an expert, and that would be Ann Knowles. And I've got to cut. We're going to have to go to break. Thank you both for being with us today. And maybe we can get you back and get Ann back as well.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. Hope you've enjoyed the show, as we have. We look forward to seeing you again next week, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.